Many years ago, there lived a woman called Ulue and her husband known as Achim. They lived in the village of Ogune. They had three children, two girls and a boy, and they lived in a small hut at the center of the village. The three children were Ozo, the eldest, Ofe, the second child, and Amali, the third and most beautiful of the three. Ozo was a boy of 15, Ofe a girl of 13, and Amali a girl of 11. They were 2 years older than each other, respectively. At this period, education had started coming to the attention of the people in the village. There were schools established for free by the government in the village. Due to this, Olue and her husband decided to put their children in school. This was to enable the children study and become specialized in different careers. This would in turn make the family proud. The children were so happy at this that they studied hard to pass in the examinations. Ozo said he wanted to become a lecturer. Ofe said she wanted to become a nurse. And Amali said she wanted to become a broadcaster. This made their parents very happy and they vowed that they would try their best to see to the success of their children in the various careers they had chosen. They were thus living happily in the community when one day the community woke up to the sound of gunshots and war. The bigger communities near Ogune village were at war with each other. In order to be at alert, the entire men in the community were assembled for war practice in case it got close to Ogune village. On the third day, the war actually started in the village, and all the men went to fight while the women were caught up in the village. Many men and women were killed, but Olue was lucky to escape with her children. She ran into the bush with her children, including other village mothers and their kids. She got to the village on time and took her children to another faraway place from where the war was actually ravaging. She left the war-torn community to another community entirely. The war was fought for almost a year, and after the war, survivors started returning back home, while others were still afraid of returning because people were still being killed in the village. Achim, the children's father, was lucky to survive the war, and he decided to return home. He got home to find that his house had been destroyed. When he asked about his family, no one could tell him what had actually happened to them. Everyone was fighting for their lives and had not been able to take note of where they had run to. He stayed with his younger brother, who had also survived the war, for about a month. He tried looking for his wife and children. Throughout that 1 month, he stayed at home but could not find them. The survivors of the war had all returned home, but his wife and children had not. So it was concluded that they must have been killed in the war. Archie was frustrated and dejected at the loss of his family. He could not withstand the thought of living in the village without his wife and children, and so decided to leave the village for the city. He wanted to leave the village to get over his sorrows and start a new life again. His younger brother tried talking him out of it, but he would not listen. 5 years after the war, Olue returned back to the village with her children, broken-hearted, but still forging ahead because of her children. 5 good years after the war, she was surprised her husband had not returned back to look for her and her children, so she thought he must have died in the war. She had stayed behind for so long, hoping her husband would be able to locate them easily where they were. She thought that if she moved to another location, he may not be able to reach them. But on getting back, she was told her husband had come back and searched for them, but could not find them. Heartbroken, he had thought them dead and had left the village for the city. The family said they had no idea where he was in the city. This made Olue to cry. Imagine all these years of suffering alone with the children, only to hear this kind of news. She asked within. She might as well continue to train the children herself, she concluded unhappily. She sought for accommodation because their house had been ravaged to the ground. She was able to find a small house in the village and rented it. Her children went back to school, and within a short time, life returned to normal. Ozo was now 21 years, while the two girls were 19 and 17 years, respectively. Ozo was working and doing a part time professional course to help the family and also sponsor his professional course, while the two girls were in their final year at the secondary school. Amali, being the beautiful girl that she was always being run after by the young men in the village. And she tried as much as she could to ward them off because she wanted to actually study hard to become a graduate. One of the boys in Ozo's department, Ubiwe, fell in love with Amali, the younger of the two girls, the very first day he saw her at her school gates. He had gone with Ozo to deliver a message to his sisters at school, and upon seeing her, was no longer himself and made up his mind to go after her. He would not let her be until he made sure Amali reciprocated his feelings and fall head over heels in love with him. This did not go down well with the family because they were really suffering and working hard to make sure the children went to school. And because of that, the children had promised and wished to become somebody in life. So we were coming into Amali's life was either going to cause early marriage and dropping out of school for Amali or becoming pregnant at an early age. The family started making problems with Ubiwe and his family. Series of warnings and threats were sent to Ubiwe's home that Ubiwe should leave their sister alone. But Ubiwe would not agree. He said he was ready to die because of Amali. And Amali also said she was ready to die because of him if they happened to separate them from each other. Ubiwe's mother called her son and begged him to leave Amali alone because she was too young, but he would not agree. Ubiwe was 24 and Amali just 17. Despite all the talkings, the two concerned kept hiding to see each other. My love, Ubiwe said to Amali, you are a virgin and I'm not going to spoil you now. I want us to go to school and become the greatest and most educated people in this village. Yes, my love, Amali replied, smiling and looking at him with love. Your family thinks my coming into your life will make you become pregnant or drop out of school, he said, but I have no intention of ruining your future. I will make sure you and I become all we wish to become, my love. That was it. Whenever they met secretly, they would discuss whatever problem they had and advise each other on them. The love between them grew stronger. They kept sacred the promise to remain pure until they got married, and this strengthened the bond they had. One day, Amali was caught with Ubiwe in the place they usually met by her brother Ozo, and he dragged her home from there. She was given a thorough beating of her life by her mother and brother. She was not allowed to go to school and was locked indoors for 3 days. Ubiwe was almost mad at the thought of not seeing the love of his life for 3 days when he found out the punishment given to her. He went to Amali's school gate to wait for her when it was closing time and was told she did not come to school by Amali's best friend Ndiom. She told him Amali had been punished because of him to stay at home for 3 days, serving the punishment they had given to her. It was terrible for him, and he could not even eat at home. This made his mother to become worried. You want to kill yourself because of a girl? She asked him. Our family has been coming here to warn you several times. They are not happy with the relationship. Why not? Why don't you look for some other girl to date? Mother, it's not a matter of some other girl. It's about Amali and I, he replied, his mother unhappily. Well, I've tried talking you out of it, but you are not listening. So whatever that family does to you is left for you, she stated in a tired voice, and walked away from him. That evening in Amali's home, Uncle Oke, their father's younger brother, came to visit them. He had great news for the family. Their father Achim had sent a message to him through a driver that operated transport from Ogune village to the city. The message was that he was coming home for a visit. Uncle Oke told them their father had no idea that his wife and children were still alive and had returned back to the village. The entire family, they were very happy, and they tried making the place comfortable to welcome their father home. They were all nervous, wondering if their father had changed much, and of course, the children had grown bigger by now. At the weekend, Achim arrived at the village and put up at his younger brother Oke's place. He arrived with his pregnant wife and a child of about 3 years old. He had not told anyone about the woman and child. That was why he had come home with them to introduce them to his family. Oke was surprised. He was completely shocked, and he quickly took him to his bedroom to tell him that Olue, his wife, and children were still alive and had come back home. Achin was surprised to hear that. He was crying like a baby and inquired where they were staying. He ran all the way from his brother's house to the place without a backward glance after his brother had told him the place. On reaching there, he grabbed his wife and swung her to the left and to the right. He hugged his beloved children and wept, tears of joy streaming down his face at seeing them once again. They talked at length, happily, and then realization dawned on him that he had come home with a woman and a child to introduce to his family as his new family, thinking he had lost his wife and children. His wife and children were surprised and shocked beyond words to hear it. It was hard for them to comprehend. They realized their father was no longer for them alone. He had formed another family with someone else. It was painful and very hard for the family to digest. Later that day, the uncles, aunts, and the extended family members gathered together to bring a peaceful atmosphere among them. They could not blame Achim for what had happened because he had not known his wife and children were still alive. The extended family agreed for Achim to retain his second wife. He was to also go back to work in the city. So Achim went back to the city with his new wife and children to resume work the following week, while his first wife and children remained in the village. He promised to be sending money to them every month and be visiting them when he was on leave. Archie visited his wife and children a few times when he was on leave, but a few years later, he completely stopped coming. His second wife was a wicked woman and had used diabolical means to change her husband's mind towards his first wife and children. She refused to be a second fiddle, and at the end, Achim stopped sending money to his family at home and thought his second wife the best and his all and all. Olue continued to suffer with her children. A year later, Ozo finished his studies and got a job. He took over the maintenance of the home, ignoring his father because he knew it was not his fault, but the manipulations of his second wife. Ofia and Amali were in their final year when another problem set in. Ubiwe was caught hugging Amali in a secret place, and Amali's family went to beat up Ubiwe. Due to fear, Amali ran away from home and went to the city to meet her father. Before she ran away, she sent a message to Obiwe through Ndiom, her friend, with a promise that she would try to study hard and after graduation, they will both meet again and get married. Obiwe also responded the same and bade her farewell. In the city, Amali found herself in a different environment entirely, and she became withdrawn to herself. Her father registered her in a new school, and she felt uncomfortable. But with the problem on ground, there was nothing she could do about it. Amali often exchanged letters with Ubiwe, and he would reply and send his pictures to her, telling her He loved her so much and was waiting for her to finish her studies so that they could get married. Amali made new friends at school, and her best friend was Timmy. She always confided in her and told her about to beware. The two girls kept no secret from each other. One day, while they were discussing at school during break time, Timmy told Amali that the solution to her problem could be solved if she could only do something diabolical, that she should go to a traditional medicine man to do some diabolical things so that her family would love and accept to be as a man good enough for her to marry. The innocent Amali was happy to hear that and gratefully accepted to do it, but she did not know anyone that could do such. Amali did not know anywhere in the city apart from her parents' home. She did not even know anyone. It was Temi that knew a place where they could find a traditional medicine man. It was obvious Temi was used to such and so agreed to take her there. They agreed not to tell anybody about it, and so the two girls planned to visit the traditional medicine man, living far from where they could be seen and recognized. The following day at break time, the girls closed from school very early and set out on the journey and arrived there safely. The man was an elderly person in his 70s, older than Amali's father with more than 20 years. It was obvious that he was rich from the buildings in his compound and the number of cars he had parked there. Was also married to 6 wives and had many children in his compound. When the girls met him, they explained the problem Amali was facing and what they wanted him to do for them. So the traditional medicine man promised to help her and told her the things to buy for the spiritual work and to also bring Ubiwe's picture for the work when she was ready to do it. The following day, the two girls took what they were told to bring to the man and he started the work. He collected Ubiwe's picture and started performing the miracles he promised to do. He gave her some mixtures to bathe with and promised within a short time that she would hear good news from her people. Several weeks passed. Amali did not hear anything tangible. Instead, she started thinking about the old traditional medicine man. She started developing loving feelings towards him. A strong feeling to go and see him came over her. The longing was so strong that she could not stay at home anymore. She wanted to just see the old man and she started to cry for him. She got up and without telling anybody, even her friend Temi, she ran all the way to the old man's house. Instead of the man doing the work both girls had come for, he was invoking Amali to love him and to come to him. It was not until she got to his house and came face to face with him that she got relieved and breathed a deep sigh of relief. What could be happening to me? She asked herself within, but she had no more control over herself. When the old man saw her, he smiled in acknowledgement and said, "You've come to answer the call." "What call? Which call?" she asked, her mind darting here and there. She was feeling strange, as if she should grab the old man instantly. The old man looked at her and said, "Follow me." Amali followed him into his bedroom. That is the end of the story for now. Watch out for part 2 to know how the story is concluded. Thank you.